What's up everybody, it's La Muerte Blanca, and the footage you're watching now is from Mayhem 3, and as you can see, this Amara build is absolutely melting everything. And when I say everything, I know that some Amara builds are great for mobs, others are okay for bosses. This will kill it all. Those of you that have been checking out the stream, shameless plug, I stream on Mixer, Twitch, and YouTube. Don't forget to check it out. Shameless plug over. Know that I love Amara. Amara is my character. I love the sirens. I've been rocking Maya since Borderlands 2 came out. So I have spent quite a bit of time testing and retesting, trying to figure out what is the most powerful Amara build out there. I found it, and I'm about to show it to you. I will say that this Amara build is based purely on the end game. If you are going to do a beginning of game progression through the main storyline type build for Amara, I would suggest something that's more crowd control that uses the phase grasp ability. However, once you get to end game and once you start getting these really good legendary items, this is the build that you need. This turns Mayhem 3 into nothing. This build is the reason why Gearbox is going to have to at some point institute Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, because right now Mayhem 3 is just way too easy. It won't matter if it's flesh, shield, armor, boss, mob, it doesn't matter. You should be able to annihilate it all to the point where all these psychos are worshipping the wrong siren. Forget the Calypso twins, they need to be looking at you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into what we got going for this build. First, we're going to talk about the skills, then we're going to go into the items, and then we might do a little bit of switching back and forth just so I can really hit home what I'm going for in terms of how all the synergies work together. First, we're going with fast hands. Amara's reload speed, weapon swap speed, and mode switch speed are going to be improved. Reload speed, never a bad thing to have, but the key here is going to be the weapon swap speed. Again, once we get into our weapons and our items, you will see why. Then we have 2 more points to spend until we get to the second level. So we're going to throw 1 on Violent Tapestry and we're going to throw 1 on Do Harm. The reason why is because rush stacks are going to be key, very key for this build. And by throwing 1 point into each, not only are we getting rush stacks by killing an enemy, we are also getting rush stacks by applying a status effect. Coming down into the second line, we're going to go and max out Transcend. You will get increased accuracy and critical hit damage. So let's go ahead and max that out. Now we have 2 more points that we need to use, and we're going to go Restless. Action skill cooldown rate is going to be lowered. We need this in order to continue to get the boss throughout the course of this build. Then we're going to go with Ascendant. The general buff for Ascendant is going to be huge, and the way we're going to use our action skill augment is going to help balance this character out quite a bit. So that is why we are going with that. And then of course, we're going to finish off Restless because we have a couple extra points. And then we have 1 more point to use before we get to the next line. So what we decided to do is add 1 more point to Do Harm. The reason why we went with Do Harm instead of Violent Tapestry is because Do Harm, as your stacks build, you are going to be gaining action skill damage as opposed to effect chance. Amara already has a very good effect chance, and if you do find the items that we found for this build, then that won't be as important as the extra damage that you'll be getting. Yes, it's only 1.8% per stack, but as you see, we're going to be racking up these stacks pretty quickly, and we're going to be getting quite a few of them, so that 1.8 is going to add up. As we come down to this next line, we want all of these because all of these are amazing skills. First, you want increased gun damage. Not only are you getting just basic increased gun damage, but you're getting even more increased gun damage after you activate your action skill. Again, that action skill being very key. Then enemies are going to take increased damage from all sources for a few seconds after being damaged by the action skill. So again, even more damage, an extra 25%. And then the fire rate. So we want to be able to get as many bullets downrange as possible while we have those couple extra seconds for a lot of the buffs that we're getting. So we are going to top this one off as well. We also went down into Awakening and we're going to max this out. The reason why we're maxing Awakening out is because the stack buff that we're getting from a particular item is going to be huge, and that extra 30% for that stack buff is going to go a long way to helping us melt those bosses, melt those mobs very, very quickly. Yes, when it comes to the rush stacks for the Violent Tapestry benefit, or the do harm benefit. 30 extra percent doesn't seem like a ton, but again, we're not worried about that. We are worried about how it's going to impact an item that we have. Then we come all the way down to the capstone, which is going to be extremely important for this build. So the way this capstone works is we can activate an extra action skill. On top of that, we're getting an extra 10 rush stacks, and we can refund those rush stacks if we get a kill with the action skill. So this is just buffing the action skill in multiple ways. We are going to be able to use the action skill with the short cooldown that we already have twice before we have to do a full cooldown, which will keep all of these buffs up. Then we're coming over into the Fist of the Elements tree, where we are going to have 5 points in Anima. There are a couple other places that you could put a point or two depending on your build, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we also went ahead and decided to add 5 points into Tempest. The more elemental damage we can do, very similar to all the other gun damage and weapon damage we're doing, the better. And of course, it is also very important to make sure we're hitting these shots, so weapon handling and accuracy are gonna hit 2 points. That leaves us with 8 more that we're gonna throw 5 points into Clarity, health regen. Very important when it comes to keeping ourselves alive. With this being a very heavy DPS build, regen is going to be very important to help balance out this build. Yes, we're going to be one-shotting everything, but we don't want to get one-shot ourselves. And then we come down to our last 3 points into Samsara. As we hit more things with our action skill, we are doing more gun damage and we're getting additional health regen. Not to mention the additional health regen we're getting after using our action skill with Clarity. So what about the actual skills that we're using? There are a couple different ways you can go with this. Phase cast is going to be the one that you want to go with if you have the anointed weapon, which I'll talk about in a second. However, if you do not have that weapon, then you're going to want to start with Deliverance. Once you send that astral projection forward, Amara's astral projection will release homing elemental projectiles, which will then add that action skill element to those enemies, doing even more damage. So that is what we're going with. We are keeping our action skill element for shock for a very specific reason. And then we are going with soul sap. 30%, actually 50%, since we have ascendant, of that damage is actually going to return to us or an ally as health. Again, the reason why we're doing this is to help balance out this character. You can't be OP if you're getting one shot. So this is actually going to help keep us alive quite a bit. So this is the base of our class. It doesn't seem like much, I know, but that's why we went ahead and added the items that we have. So starting off with the weapons, and this weapon is going to be the key to what we have going on in terms of our relic and a lot of extra damage that we're getting. Hazardous Sellout. Notice that is a level 26. This is the hazardous sellout that you get by killing yourself in Eden 6 when Tyrene is looking for all those extra viewers, where you go into that chamber, you press the button, kill yourself, and she gives you a legendary weapon. She calls you a gun slut, but trust me, it's worth it. If you want to do this build, you need this gun. This is very important because you're going to be using this gun to essentially set yourself on fire or corrode yourself. It is a 72% chance, so it will work, but you do need this for a very important reason. That very important reason is because this relic that we have, the Elemental Projector White Elephant, gives you an 183 damage boost of the element that you are currently suffering. So if you put that on and you set yourself on fire, as long as you are on fire, you are going to be doing an extra 183% damage. And that is why we have Anima, because Anima is increasing the duration of the status effect, not only on the enemies that we inflict, but also ourselves. So the longer we can have ourselves set on fire, the longer we will be able to do that extra 183% damage. Then we have the Molten Ruthless Lyuda. If you like the SMGs, you can go with the Hellfire. If you like assault rifles, then you can go with Rowan's Call. If you like shotguns, you can go with the Flacker. There's a lot of different ways to go with this. But the one thing that I do want to mention when it comes to the weapon, which I am currently searching for, is there is an anointed weapon out there. It's an anointed version where after using phase cast, weapon damage is increased by 250% for a short time. So if you're able to find an anointed weapon that is fire, similar to the one I have here, but mine is not elemental, so I cannot use it for this build, then that is going to be a huge, probably the biggest single buff that you can add to this build, which is going to be absolutely amazing. So all the melting that you see me doing to enemies and bosses now, Imagine that with an extra 250%. Then we come over to my next weapon. Not specifically the handsome jackhammer is what we're looking for, but it's more of a corrosive weapon. The reason why is because the hazardous sellout does fire as well as corrosive. So if you're fighting an armored enemy, of course you don't want to shoot fire at them. Switch to corrosive, again, mode switch, then you're going to switch your weapon swap speed to your corrosive weapon, and then you'll be able to use that on that character. As far as the shield goes, I have not yet found a shield that is great for this build overall. You might be asking, Blanca, what about shielded enemies? You talked about flesh, you talked about armor. What are we gonna do about shielded enemies? Okay, so there's two options here. One, you can use your grenade. I have a recurring hex that is anointed where on action skill start, I regenerate a grenade. So every single time I throw an action skill out there, I'm getting a grenade back, which is going to be huge because this will completely annihilate shields and I won't run out of grenades because, as you can see, I'm going to be doing my action skill over and over and over and over because of the skills that I have set. However, if you do not have this, you can use a Stormfront, and if you do not have a Stormfront, you can then take one of the points from Anima and throw it into Infusion. The reason why we currently have this set to Shock on our build is if we don't have the grenade, we can use our phase cast in order to take out shields, or again, we can use Infusion. And the reason why we're going to use Infusion is because if we set ourselves on fire or if we corrode ourselves with the hazardous sellout, we are also going to be electrocuting ourselves. And that is going to allow us to use an electrocution weapon, whether that be, whatever you want it to be. Currently, I have a Cutsman, which I really want a Cutsman for fire because I think this would honestly be the best possible weapon to use. Like if you find a Cutsman with the 250 phase cast bonus that I talked about earlier, you're good to go. Like you don't need anything else unless they come out with more weapons. But I digress. If you decide to electrocute yourself, then you want to use the Transformer. The Transformer has the highest capacity that I've been able to find for a legendary shield, and I also don't know what the anointed versions might be able to provide because I haven't found an anointed shield yet. But if you do not have a Stormfront or a Hex or a good shot grenade that is going to melt shields for you, and you feel like the phase cast is not doing enough damage to shields, then you can electrocute yourself. But because you have the Transformer, that converts 100% of the shock damage into your shield. So you're not taking that shock damage, and you're also taking less fire damage because that is actually going to be counteracting the fire damage that you're taking. Again, this weapon is level 26. You should be level 50. It's not doing much anyway, but the less, obviously, the better. Then we come into our class mod, which is going to be the capstone to the entire build. I got lucky and found a temp spectral phase zerker. However, any phase zerker is going to be very important. On action skill used, Amara gains her max rush stack count, but they decay over time. Amara gains 3% weapon damage and 10% action skill cooldown rate based on the number of rush stacks. And it's adding 5 rush stacks, bringing us to a grand total of 25 rush stacks. So when we use our action skill, we're automatically getting that 25 rush stack total. And we're getting 3% for every single stack to our weapon damage. That is 75% weapon damage on top of all the other damage buffs that we have to our gun damage, on top of hitting something with our action skill that is getting an extra 25% from all other sources, on top of our fire rate, on top of the critical hit damage that we already have, and that 10% action skill cooldown is being paired with the action skill cooldown rate that we already have. So this 25% is combining with 25 rush stacks of 10%. So we are getting a 275% action skill cooldown, meaning we are throwing out that phase cast over and over and over and over, meaning we are constantly getting these buffs, meaning we're constantly consuming these rush stacks. So 1.8 again doesn't seem like a lot, but when you multiply it by 25, you're actually getting an extra 45%. But guys, there's more. We also have Awakening, which is another 30%. So that 45% then turns into a 58.5%. That 75% that we're getting from the Phase Zerker mod is getting an extra 30% on top of the 75%. So our gun damage is going through the roof. The craziest thing in my mind about this entire build, I'm not even done with it. Yes, I have the Molten Ruthless Lyuda and it melts things, and I have the Rowan's Call if I need a bigger clip, and I have the Flacker where I could just go around and just melt mobs. But none of these have that phase cast anointment. So think about adding 250% to everything we just talked about. I haven't found an anointed shield yet, or a shield that really has an impact on this build. Think about what this build could be if you add something on top of that. You might be getting lost in all these numbers that I'm throwing out. I'll make it real simple for you. If you build your character with these action skills, okay? And if you build your character with these items, or even better, because I don't even think these are the best items that I can use right now. Currently, my extra, not even flat damage, my extra percent damage based on everything that I currently have on this character is 540%. That's the extra elemental, that's the extra gun damage, that's the extra crit damage, that's the extra just general weapon damage. However, if I find that phase cast anointed weapon that I'm looking for, then it'll be 790%. 790% extra damage. And all I did was light myself on fire, throw my phase cast out, and then shoot my weapon. So basically the way this build works is just set yourself on fire, use your phase cast, and then light them up with all the buffs that you get, the 183 and all the other damage buffs you get by hitting it with your phase cast. Want to hit it again with your phase cast? Great. Use your phase cast while it's recharging. Continue to light it up. Oh, you're not on fire anymore. Switch to your weapon. Set yourself on fire again. Rinse, repeat. This build is where you need to go if you are doing endgame with Amara. And it's absolutely amazing, and I absolutely love it. So if you guys love this build as much as I do, or at least enjoyed this video, please don't forget to drop a like, comment, tell me what you think, and make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button so you can catch all the future La Muerte Blanca content. I know this was a long-winded explanation, but there was a lot going on with this build, and I felt the detail was necessary for you guys to truly understand where I was coming from. So I do appreciate you sticking around this long. Check the La Muerte Blanca live streams on Mixer, Twitch, and YouTube. All the links can be found in the description below. I'm La Muerte Blanca, and I'll catch you guys next time.